If you didn't have a fear of spiders already, you will after this one. What's up everybody, and welcome to my review of the newest creature feature, Sting. And this is a film that was not on my radar until I started to see a couple of people talking about it, and then luckily I was able to grab a screener. Now this was a movie that was not on my radar at all. I know we have the film Infested coming up. I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go to New Orleans, and that's one of the films at the festival I'm going to. It's going to be premiering there. But sliding under the radar is this other arachnophobia-centric film called Sting. And essentially what you got here is this decrepit apartment building. I want to say it was in Chicago, but don't quote me on that. And this little asteroid comes out of space, launches through the window of this storeroom, and out pops from this asteroid a tiny little spider. And it ends up getting picked up by this little girl that has a fascination with it, and she starts to treat it as this pet. She starts to realize that the spider is so much more smarter than spiders that she is used to. It actually can communicate with certain sounds, and it seems to understand her. And unfortunately, the more that she feeds this fucking thing, the bigger that it gets. So we start off feeding it little grasshoppers and flies and other tiny insects, and then before you know it, little dogs are going missing throughout the complex, and then actual tenants are going missing in this complex. So it takes the fear of arachnophobia, which is traditionally a little silly that we're scared of little tiny insects. Yes, some of them are poisonous, but I get it. They're gnarly, ugly looking fuckers. And we're gonna take that and make a gigantic Volkswagen-sized alien spider that's not only smarter than you, it will devour your asshole. So starting off with the positives of Sting, I really liked that little twist on spider creature features. You know, we've had some similar ones like Eight-Legged Freaks, but even that one is going much more with the number of spiders. It's about the whole hive coming after a community. This is just people caught in an isolated setting with one silent, smart spider. And it genuinely does touch on a lot of different aspects of being afraid of spiders. When it's small, it's creepy because there's scenes where it's killing people and actually like crawling into their throat, and they're paralyzed so they can't move. You get when it gets bigger, and of course it's just intimidating as hell to have this giant eight-legged fang thing coming at you that's the size of a gigantic grizzly bear. But also you get scenes where people are being webbed up and saved for a snack later on. It's like straight out of Aliens, where they're cocooned up and you're trying to break through and save them. So there's a lot of really cool variety to the classic spider creature feature here. I also appreciated the fact that they went hard R. This is gory. There are, you know, profanity-fueled characters. I always feel like it kind of cuts the nuts off of the horror sometimes when we go for PG-13. Not to say that you can't have good, effective PG-13 horror, but once in a while, it's nice to slum it and just go full rated R and just, you know, explode heads and have blood and guts everywhere. And I think they did a really good job at mixing practical effects and CGI effects with this spider. I mean, it's very clear when they're using CGI and when they're not, but I think it was effective to where you have these sequences, especially using shadows and things like that, that make the spider much more of a formidable force when it is smaller, and then when it gets larger, having to build out a full model of this spider makes it much more effective in those chase scenes. If they had gone full CGI, I think it would have destroyed this movie, so I'm glad that they at least committed to doing a lot of practical effects here, because it is so much more effective, especially when you are down to the climax of the film and all the tension's high and the spider is at its max level, its max size. That's something you want to feel like is real, not a video game graphic. Moving on to the mixed, the main little girl, who's kind of the main protagonist here, the one that is actually caring for Sting, and her name is Charlotte. Yeah, you get the reference there. I liked her character, but she also has kind of the traditional problem with having a bitchy, angsty, preteen girl. And so that always makes it difficult for me to completely like her character. There's reasons given why she's a little rough around the edges and why she's a little standoffish that certainly I can sympathize with, but it's always such a hard balance to strike, to give a child or a preteen or even a teenage character some real world explanation for why they're flawed, while not making them be like this shitty kid that, especially as a parent, as an adult, you're just like, shut the fuck up. And the other mixed aspect is the relationship that Charlotte has with her stepfather, who's kind of the other main protagonist of this film. I appreciated the fact that a movie like this that's going for camp and is going for the creature feature kills and the blood and the gore and everything actually takes time to do things with their characters. So there's some drama here with him being the new stepdad and trying very hard to be caring towards her and caring towards the family and battling while trying to sympathize with some of her angst and some of her resistance to a new father. And again, it's a situation that many of us can sympathize with because we either have lived that or know somebody that lived that. However, I don't feel like they dove into it enough for my taste. So it's kind of a point where I would almost prefer a campy movie like this to not bother with it rather than to just kind of dabble in storytelling and character arcs. As soon as they start to get into some of these things and I start to see some themes being explored and I start to see multiple interesting angles that we can go with these characters, suddenly I perk up and I'm excited to see where all of that goes by the third act of the film. And when you get a film like this where it really doesn't go anywhere, it was just kind of there for a little extra seasoning, I get a little disappointed. So if it wasn't there at all, would I be more disappointed that there was no character work? I can't really say for sure. All I know is that when you give us an interesting character dynamic there, I'd like to see it paid off better than what Sting pays it off with. Moving on to the negatives, I didn't really like a lot of the characters in this movie. They're very kooky and campy and weird and eccentric, and for some people that's going to really be a highlight to this movie. That's going to be something they enjoy about it. For me, they were all a little too weird. Like, it just kind of breaks a bit of the reality for me, even in something as silly as an alien spider movie where you get this building and every single fucking person in this building is a little off. You got one person that's got memory loss, you got another one that's an absolute over-the-top comical drunk, you got all of the family drama going on with the main characters, you got the super over-the-top bitchy like landlord aunt that's in here, and so a bit too much with the eccentricities of these characters. I would have liked to have a little bit more of a grounded cast, maybe have one character, two characters tops that are really stand out and are really chewing up the scenery. The entire cast, too much. And my final negative, I would have liked to have seen a bit more gore. You do get some blood here, you do get some bloody kills, but the slasher fan in me especially wanted a little bit more gnarliness. I wanted to see a spider chewing on somebody's head or a decapitation or two. You know, I wanted to see limbs getting ripped off. Like, I don't know what that says about me, but since they were going there, I was like, ooh, cool. They kind of just went over the edge from PG-13 into rated R as far as the gore stuff. So I really would have liked it more if this movie went just balls out and was just a full-on splatterfest, but I understand. They can't all be Terrifier. Overall, guys, I had a pretty good time with this one. I think most of you will have a good time with it, especially if you like creature features like this. It's not going to end up being one of my favorites of the year or this new instant creature feature classic by any means, but it hit enough beats that I want in these types of spider creature features that I can recommend it pretty confidently. It's coming to theaters, I believe, April 12th, and then I'm sure it'll be on streaming service not too long after that, so be sure to check it out and be sure to just suddenly start fidgeting everywhere thinking that there's spiders on you all the time after watching this thing. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all my 2024 new release reviews. I'm also going to put the pilot episode of my new series, Movie Brawl, up here for you to check out. We talk about Terminator versus Terminator 2. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.